My mother's maiden name was Landreth, Landreth. And they reputedly landed in Berwick on the Tweed River in 1068 after the Norman invasion.
And it's quite possible.
It's quite possible that some of their people fought in William the Conqueror's army. They lived in the highlands and apparently were cattle rustlers, going down in the valleys to steal people's cattle. And before they, in later generations, became lawyers and clergymen and soldiers. And apparently, according to my cousin George Landreth, there's a gravestone, 1107, with the Landreth carved in it. The name Landreth carved in it, in Scotland. Now, whether it's near Berwick or the Tweed River, I don't know. I'm not sure the exact location.
Anything else?
No, that's all I know about those.
Oh, about
my maternal side of the family.
What does the crest look like?
Well, I have some of that. I think I have a whole genealogy of the Landreths in a notebook in Cambridge.
Have you ever seen it?
Yeah.
The crest, the family crest.
Well, I think I saw it.
Is that the one with the glove and the dragon?
No, that's Lewis. And it's interesting that Lewis is the name of a big island that is often referred to by this person who was narrating this documentary about Scotland.
That's something else. That's all you know about the Landreths?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about the Landreths in the...
I know about their arrival in Philadelphia, two brothers, in 1755 in Philadelphia, and they started.
Didn't they come earlier though in the Americas?
No, they came only in 1755.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Continue.
And
two brothers, yeah.
Two brothers named Landreth arrived in Philadelphia, and they started a siege company, which was everybody knew about too. I've already mentioned it, the Landreth Siege Company. And that's the extent of my knowledge.
And after that,
I think, during the Revolutionary War, they're listed as chain carriers. They're bearers of chain, which are used to haul the cannon. And, those chains must have been hugely heavy. They must have been the strongest men, carrying chains all around the mountains of North Carolina.
Didn't the horses carry the chains through the snow?
Well, they might have, but they're called chain bearers in the genealogy.
And after that?
Well, they went down. This was in the tri-state area where North Carolina and Tennessee come together.
And then?
Near a town called Bristol.
All right.
Big Stone Gap.
And then?
Then they went. Then they went down to. There was for 3 generations they moved every year, which really I think showed that they weren't doing very well. And George Washington Landreth was the paternal leader of the family and a farmer, and there was a horrible incident when he he ran over one of his boys, and the child died of osteomyelitis, which is bone infection because of the injury.
Basically gangrene.
Yeah. And his mother.
When was that?
His mother.
When was that?
This was in about. This is after the Civil War. He was in the Civil War. George Washington Landreth. This is before he started farming, and his mother was from Wheeling, West Virginia. I mean, his wife, the wife of George Washington Landreth, was from Wheeling, West Virginia. And after this point, because of her grief of the loss of her youngest son, she started reading the Bible and became, she was just lost in melancholy, grieving. All she did is read the Bible the rest of her life. Very sad. And there's an incident when my grandfather got depressed after he lost a job as a Western sales manager at Rowlett Packing Company, having worked for Anchor Packing Company. At a very early age, 23 years old, I think he lied about his age. He'd been sent, the only child sent to a private school, sent to a military school, Miami Military Academy in Miami, Missouri. And he lit off a big firecracker in a tin can, was kicked out of school. And they sacrificed to send him to that school. And he went to work at the Kansas City Waterworks as a way to sort of redeem himself. And was given a gold watch with 1900 written on, which I think was stolen from me. I had it in Combermere. When in the move, a lot of things were missing, such as my hunting horn.
Yeah, well, don't worry about that. But what about the Landreths that went to Texas?
Well,
how'd that happen?
Well, they were in the mining supply business. They had a little gas-driven bucket. It was they had a business and were doing very well in mining supply, and run by Ernest and William Landreth, Will Landreth. Ernest, who died at 62. He must have had a bad cardiac situation. And so one of the people working in the country was Ed Landreth, who was the youngest in the family, and the youngest son. And he was sent down to Texas to send this. This was a bucket. This was when they were in the mine. I mean, really the sixth generation of the mining. This is when they get down into a mine, they first thing that they start working on were the walls. I mean, they were mining for lead or zinc or something like that, and so there was a lot of gravel in the pit in the bottom of the mine. So you have to get this gravel out of there to keep digging and looking for ore. So this is a kind of a bucket, gas driven, on some kind of, maybe on cables of some kind, which they fill up with gravel, and this gas driven little device was they sent Ed Landreth down to Texas to sell this. He sent a telegram back and said, we got to get out of the mining supply business and into the oil business. And his brother set him up. Fine, they'd probably raise about $60,000 to $70,000 among themselves. And then he came back and asked for more. And they may have gone as high as a couple of $100,000, which is a lot of money for those people who are making their money out of working the mines. And then there's a story about a mine that they had, that George Washington Landreth was trying to lay claims on in Galena, Kansas, called the J. Hawker mine. And my grandfather had gotten some of his business associates in Chicago to invest in this mine. They asked, I think he raised something like $500 to $600 for this mine, and so they wrote in, asked how it was doing, if there were any revenues to expect from their investment, and the letter were sent back that there had been a huge rainstorm, and a lot of the receipts had blown out of the back of the buggy into the mud and couldn't be really salvaged, couldn't be recovered. And it turned out later the American Zinc Company discovered the biggest zinc lode in America. He was right. He just didn't have the wherewithal to put it together to make it work. But he was right. It was the biggest zinc lode in America. But Ed became one of the great wildcatters in Texas. And it was, in the middle of the night, running in pipes, building tanks, storage tanks for the oil when it hit gushers, and right along Gulf and Shell and some of the big oil companies. And he was finally making so much money that he started giving a lot of it away. Got a little bit manic from his success, and finally they had to take the management of the company away from him, and then he went later down to Brownsville, Texas, and started a grapefruit ranch, which we used to get ruby grapefruits throughout the winter, big boxes of them, delicious. It was a very, very happy resolution of all the stress that Ed went through when he was running Landreth Oil in his first deal with Stanley Oil. And so those are my stories about the Landreth.